this is Trish, and welcome again to another video about twin flames. I apologize again for the lighting and everything and the weird times that I'm trying to do this. I was actually going to do this video outside because I am back home in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, and I thought it would be fitting for me to talk about tower moments here, where I had huge tower moments last year. But it was so hot. Oh my God, it was like 91 degrees and a zillion% humidity. If you've ever been in the South in June, July, August, you know what I'm talking about. Now, as far as I know, the chat is open. Yeah, okay. So if anybody hops on, and I know this is a bad time of day, but again, I'm fighting with the light right now. So I wanted to talk about tower moments and what they are. The tower, I should have thought of this. I should have thought of that. I don't know if you saw my big butt, but if you did, oh well. Let me get out some tower cards. The tower, when twin flame people talk about tower moments, we're talking about the tower card in the major arcana of the tarot. And that card represents, as a major arcana, it represents the spiritual journey. So it's not necessarily, in a reading, it's not necessarily a physical tower moment, but in the twin flame journey, it usually does intimate some kind of big change in your life. And wow, I should have already had this done, huh? I wasn't even thinking about that. But the tower card represents when you really need to change from old paradigm to new paradigm. Your old ways of thinking will not work for you anymore. Your old ways of doing things will not work anymore. That you have probably been given signs along the way that you needed to make changes and you've ignored them, or you pretended they didn't exist, and so you're going about your life trying to hold everything together, when really what you needed to do was just let everything fall apart. When you have these moments in your life, they are usually really awful to go through. And I hate to sound like that. I don't want to be a negative Nelly, but that is the truth. It usually, if you are employed, it will probably mean you're going to lose your job, or you're going to be downsized, or your company is making some kind of restructuring, blah, blah, blah. And their restructuring doesn't include you. If you're self-employed, it can mean that you lose clients. This is what happened to me starting back in 2013. And it just got worse and worse over the past several years. What happened was that I was writing for several major Broadway musical theater organizations. I was the guide for theater on About.com. I don't know if you've ever heard of About.com. And I had been working there for actually nearly 3 years. And they were bought out by Ask.com. And the first thing Ask.com did was they started firing writers, and they fired 2/3 of the editorial team. And 9 months later, I got my pink slip. Actually, I didn't get it. They sent it to an email address that I didn't use. And so I actually didn't find out that I was no longer working for them until I got an email in my personal email account, my Gmail, that said former guide information. I was like, what? Former guide? I'm supposed to get 30 days notice. What the hell is going on? So yeah, that was talk about a rude awakening. And then the other things that happened, I was managing editor for BroadwaySpace.com, and I did that for like 4 or 5 months. And then I get the email saying that the site is not able to advertise. They're not able to turn over advertising dollars like they had anticipated, and that companies weren't paying for advertising because the rise of social media. They were expecting people to just, oh, Broadway will just share stuff on their social media, and that's going to be the advertising. And that mentality is actually still pretty pervasive. In fact, Broadway performers are finding out more and more when they go to an audition. One of the questions that they're asked is, well, how many followers do you have on Twitter? How many followers do you have on your Facebook page? How many followers do you have on Instagram? It's become crazy. So anyway, that was the beginning of the end, and that was in 2013. And so I just kept going and trying to make things work, and I was able to make things work for a few years until last year, and it just really all fell apart. And I just, at that point, I really had to fight my training and my the way I was raised. Growing up, I was in the fine arts, which is very, very competitive. In fact, I grew up doing competitions, theater competitions, even performed at international theater competition in South Korea. And, so that's very competitive in the arts. And then I grew up going to private schools, Catholic schools. But I went to private schools, and that's very competitive as well. And so for me, it's about, if you really want it, you try hard. If you don't get it, then you didn't want it hard enough. And, second place is first place loser. And so I had to get rid of a lot of this indoctrination from the fine arts and from private schooling. And maybe even some of that was the influence of religion and this idea that this religion's going to heaven, everybody else is going to hell. And even though I don't feel that way, when you're raised in that, there's some of that does actually bleed through, that that some people just have the right ideas and all the answers, and other people don't. So anyway, so last year in 2017, I finally just stopped. I just stopped fighting. And of course I felt like a failure. But it was a huge, huge tower moment. And, I try to live my life very transparently. And if you've read my blog, where I spent several years detailing my orgasm awakening process, then you know that I put my life out there. And so what happened last year is that I gave up. I just stopped fighting because I was fighting the things that weren't good for. I was fighting to keep the things that weren't good for me. I was fighting to stay in a place where I shouldn't be. I was fighting for all the things that did not serve me, while I was resisting and fighting against my higher spirit, my spirit guides, and all of them who were trying to lead me toward where I should be. And it just fell apart. I could not earn a living here. The pubs where I sang regularly, they closed, and through no fault of mine. But it's just that not only was it getting harder to find paying work out of New York, which I had done for several years, but it was hard to get work locally. I even put in for work as a waitress at several of the local restaurants, but I'm not young, I'm not cute, I'm not thin, I'm not whatever syrupy, sweet kind of person that they're looking for. And so I couldn't get hired anywhere. And so it was just the universe saying, you do not belong here. Are you listening now? And so when it got to the point where my landlord had given me yet another eviction notice, I just didn't fight it this time. The laws in Mississippi allow a landlord to give you an eviction notice if you're 3 days late on rent, because I was month to month. And so just didn't fight it. And I sent my daughter to live with her father, and I hated that. Oh my God, I hated that. And thankfully, I had a couple of friends that took me in. And it was actually this time last year, because I was getting ready to go to the CD Baby conference in Nashville, and then I was planning to go out to LA. And so it was just a time where I was having one tower moment after another. And I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't keep fighting to keep the things that at that point I knew just were not working for me. And so the tower represents the old structures, the old paradigms that you've built that may have served you in the past, but they don't work for you now. And so the lightning, this is usually like lightning striking, maybe fires and explosions, you know. And then oftentimes you'll see where it's striking at the bottom of the tower, and that's because it's striking at the foundation. It's gonna rock your world down to the foundation of everything you've built up. Is gonna come crumbling down because this no longer serves you. And so when we talk about tower moments, this is what we mean. It is not easy, especially if you're a parent, you know, and you have kids to take care of, but it's not easy for anybody to go through these tower moments, because whatever paradigm you've built up, whatever structure of comfort and security and safety that you have built up for yourself that is not working for you, that's going to come down. And you know, every situation is different, every person is different, how you handle things is different. But let me tell you, the longer you fight it, the more it's just gonna hurt you, and it's gonna keep you off the path you should be on when you're clinging to this. When you're trying to rebuild from this rubble, you know, it's like, okay, well, you knocked it all down. Well, let me go in here and I'm going to put it all back together. That doesn't work either. You cannot rebuild from a broken foundation, and you cannot rebuild from the bits and pieces of the old paradigm. You literally are starting completely over. And that is never good. Never a good feeling. It is good for you, but it's just not a good feeling. And so for me, the reason why I call this tower after tower moment is because, you know, I was in LA, and I gave myself 3 months. I was going to be in LA for 3 months for various reasons I won't talk about in this video. I wound up being there for 10 months, but everything that I needed, the people that I needed to connect with to help me in terms of music and my album and whatever, I met them within the 3 months. So I went out to LA, I accomplished what I set out to do in terms of music. It was really amazing. Then after that, I literally was spinning my wheels, you know, from a music perspective. I really didn't know how to go forward at that point. And so I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to go about it. I didn't really have the resources to do it. To be perfectly honest with you, I was homeless in LA. I was living out of my car in Los Angeles. That is not comfortable or safe. It was actually pretty awful. And in fact, I have never really been suicidal in my life, but that was pretty close. If I had had a cyanide pill, if I had had access to a morphine drip, I probably would have taken it. That was just about the lowest point of my life. And if you've read my blog, you know I've been through some shit. I have been through some stuff. I am a survivor first and foremost, but let me tell you, being homeless in Los Angeles, hitting me at nighttime, but it was miserable. And my car was my one refuge. I saved up my money, what little money I had coming in, I saved it up, and I was able to get a room in Pasadena. And a couple months later, I was in San Francisco. I was a guest speaker at a human rights conference, and my car was stolen. So I went out to LA for two main reasons, one of them being music and the other being my divine masculine. The music worked out great. The divine masculine part, not so much. And the 3 months, even though I was homeless at that, I was technically homeless most of that time anyway. I was house sitting for a couple weeks at the very beginning. And then I was out of my car, but it was just awful. It was really bad. And so I went from this horrible tower moment of losing my home where I'd lived for 7 years, having to send my daughter to live with her father, whom I can't stand, having to rely on friends. You know, they offered, I didn't ask, they offered, they took me in. But I overstayed my welcome there because I said a few weeks. I wound up being there for nearly 3 months. And then driving out to LA, and that experience, the disappointment of not connecting with my divine masculine, that was emotionally awful. You know, and then being homeless, but then losing my car. It was just like the universe was telling me also, guess what? You're not supposed to be here. The 3 months, okay, but you're still here. Go somewhere else. And so what happened is that with my car being stolen, my wallet was in my car. And because my wallet was in my car when it was stolen, my wallet had fallen out of my purse when I was switching things over from my book bag to my purse. So now I had no ID, no debit cards. I don't have credit cards. No debit cards. So without a driver's license, I couldn't rent a car to come back home. I couldn't fly because I had no ID. I didn't even have my social security card. You know, I had nothing. And the DMV here in Mississippi would not let me, would not send a duplicate license out to me. So that's why I've had to come back here to Mississippi. Of course, now I can see that there are things that I needed to tie up. I had karmic situations that I needed to tie up. And quite frankly, some of these karmic situations are more old paradigms, old situations that I just need to clear once and for all. And some of these are family. You know, my family doesn't like me. My family doesn't, they don't understand what I do. They don't understand why didn't I just get a corporate job and why don't I make $200,000 a year. They certainly don't understand the music. Most of my family members are either teachers or they're visual artists. I can draw great stick figures. I can do that. My family, they don't understand the music. They don't understand theater, why I'm drawn to that, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, even now, even though I'm aware of the whole tower thing and whatever, you know, the tower moments will keep happening until I am fully on my path and what I'm supposed to do. But I knew that I had to come back here to Mississippi to deal with stuff, to deal with family. And some of these family members I'm going to have to say goodbye to. They're not in my soul family. They're my blood family in this lifetime, but they're not my soul family. And, you know, I met soul family in Los Angeles. And it's always cool. You just know that you're meeting someone that you just belong with. You know, they're part of your tribe. And I know that. And I know that my blood family, many of them, I can't keep pretending that there's something there because I know they don't care about me. They don't care for me. I'm the crazy person in the family. So anyway, the tower moments for each person will be different based on how far away from your purpose you're traveling at that point. The sooner you let, if you're trying to keep all those plates spinning in the air, the sooner you let them fall, the better off you'll be. It's just never easy. It's never easy to admit that you've made mistakes, and it's never easy to look at the things you've built, whether it's an actual structure, whether it's a community that you built up, that you just see it's just broken and it doesn't serve you anymore, and there's no way you can fix it. Sometimes it is better just to walk away, and that is very difficult when you're talking about finances, a roof over your head, a roof over your kids' heads, food on the table. Trust me, I've been homeless, and I've been hungry, and go days without food, not because I'm fasting, but because there's just no money. There's no money to eat, and I understand what that is like. I've been there, and all I can say is that if you really want to walk this path, you can survive anything. You can survive anything. And when those moments get really tough and you're having the suicidal thoughts, just know that the suicide, if you are really on this twin flame journey, if you really believe in the whole idea of a soul and reincarnation and karma, then you know that if you cut and run now with suicide, that's just racking up more karma. And you're gonna come back and you're gonna have to go through all of this shit again. And with your tower moments, if you don't deal with your tower moments, you will keep having hardship after hardship after hardship until you finally acknowledge that whatever it is that you're trying to hold on to, it is not for you anymore, even if it was something that was good for you in the past. So I did not mean to go on this long about towers, but the tower moments and the tower journey and overcoming the old tower and building new success and new soul tribe on earth, and just connecting with people that you really belong with, that is something that it's just tough. And I don't think enough people are willing to talk about the tower moments, especially because of the suicidal thoughts aspect of it that I think a lot of people go through. So anyway, so I'm going to end this here, and here we go. This is the tower, and just remember that if you are going through a tower moment, it's because you have something better waiting for you, but you can't get to it. You will not be able to have it as long as you're still trying to keep this old tower going. Or if you're trying to rebuild with the rubble on the broken foundation of the tower that no longer serves you. So think of this card, if you know the tarot, think of this card like the Eight of Cups. The Eight of Cups is about abandoning a path. It's about walking away from whatever does not serve you. And the tower moment just amplifies that sentiment. So anyway, okay, this is going to take forever to upload, but if you have liked this video, which I know that this isn't the usual kind of video you want to like and say, ooh, a thumbs up on this, because this shit is tough, and it's tough to talk about, and most people don't want to talk about it because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. You feel like a failure. If you got evicted, if your home was foreclosed, if your car was repossessed, if you had to go on food stamps. It is just difficult to admit that you were a failure, but just remember that whole construct of I'm a failure or I failed, that is a 3D mentality. That is ego. That is ego telling you that you did not meet the expectations of society. You should have had that dream job. You should be living in that dream house. You should be driving that dream car. You should be eating at the finest restaurants. Your kids should be wearing the best clothes and going to the best schools. I mean, that's all 3D bullshit. And you just have to do what is best for you, what's best for your children. And sometimes it just means starting over from scratch. Tower moment. Woohoo. Sorry. Anyway, okay. All right. I love y'all very much, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.